So, we have been reading Red Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson. It has been good. I'm enjoying it. And I'm enjoying reading it to you. Time for my least favorite part, trying to summarize the book. I don't know. I'd have to read a lot more Kim Stanley Robinson to know how he compares to Asimov. But I mean, it's good sci-fi if that's what you're asking, sir. So Red Mars is a book about Mars and the colonization of Mars, starting with the first 100 all the way up to ... who knows. I think there's at least like a few thousand people on Mars in the beginning of the book, because the book starts after like, a few years, and they've finally built like the first, or like some of the first cities. I don't really know exactly what's going on in the beginning because they don't explain it yet. But I mean, the print doesn't look that large. Like, it's not huge. Like, it's not tiny. Like, it's not big for sure. Hello, Dremsel Ruth. Thank you for 9 months. Okay, so yeah, in the beginning, like, they're kind of like it's like a flash forward or whatever, or maybe what we're doing right now is it's flashback. Who knows, forward, backwards. It's implied that there is a current time. So anyways, in the current time, Mars had, like, they're doing like the grand opening of some big city called Nicosia. It's a city on Mars now, and there's like thousands of people, and they're like having a festival. And then this guy, Frank Chalmers, he coordinates the assassination of the first man on Mars and his best friend. So he coordinates his friend's murder for reasons unknown to the viewer. And then he sees this girl, Maya, and he's like all awkward. He's like, what happened on the Ares? And then John dies. And then it flashes back to when they're just flying out to Mars. They're going to Mars, and there's only 100 people, including Frank, John, and Maya. They were 3 of the first 100 people on Mars. And John was actually the first man on Mars, so he's a bit of a celebrity. And Frank's kind of like the brains behind the operation. And then Maya, she gets a crush on Frank because she's Russian and he's American, and like he's the captain of the American team and she's the captain of the Russian team. So they have like they play footsie a little bit. And then Frank scares her. She's like, I don't know what it is about this guy, but it seems like he might murder his best friend in the future. So she gets like weird vibes. And she doesn't really like how, like, his attitude towards sex as like a conquest. And she's like, I am Russian. We don't have such outdated ideas as Americans. So then she's like, she gets kind of cold towards Frank, and she's like, it was just a fling. Because part 2 is all told from the perspective of Maya. So then she gets kind of like cold towards Frank, and it was just kind of like a hookup scenario, anyways. But you know how men are. They get feelings. But then, anyway, so Maya's like, it's just a fling. We were both bored, and then she has sex with John. In the Bubble Dome, no less. The Bubble Dome is a cool little zero G spot. It's the jokes write themselves, actually. So they're in the Bubble Dome with zero G. And then, things get, like, sexy. And then John and Maya are the power couple now. And, that kind of, like, soothes tensions between the nations. And then they land on Mars. And they have to unpack all of their shit. After spending 6 months, after spending, like, a year in space in a ship that's basically the size of a large hotel with 100 people in it. And then they land, and they all split up to go do their jobs, and that is part 3, where we are. And there's a few different teams. There's like, God, I was doing really good with the summary, and now I've lost it a little bit, because I need to mention all the characters that are important. So we have the love triangle of John, Maya, and Frank. They're a triangle, and then there's like 100 other people. And so some of my favorites are the King of Phobos. Wait, right. Okay, so they all split up to do their jobs when they land on Mars successfully, I might add. Nobody died. And they land on Mars, and like 5 people split off to go to the moon. Not the Earth moon, the Mars moon, dummy. They go to the moon, Phobos. And Arcady has one possession of the moon. He's gonna build a space station there, although people feel that his intentions are dubious. They think he might take over Mars from the moon. He's like one of the 5 coolest kings of Phobos. So yeah, he's up on the moon right now, and they're trying to build a space station. Arcady's a cool guy. That's why we're his fan club. He's got like red hair and a beard, and he's Russian, and he thinks that like Mars should revolt. They've only been there for like 2 days. He's like, guys, I think we should mutiny. So he's fun. I don't know if he's a crypto anarchist, but words have meanings, okay? It is indeed. That is exactly what Arcady would say. He was saying it on the way there as well. So they hadn't even arrived at Mars, and he's like, you guys, this is the brave new world. We need to go. We need to shake off our chains. How can Texas tell us what to do when Texas isn't here? You know, but he's sweet. He's one of my favorite characters so far. And then there's Nadia. She's also Russian. And I didn't really know much about her until part 3, where we are currently reading the story from Nadia's perspective. The only time Nadia was described earlier in the book was when Maya was describing her ugly best friend, who they're like sisters, But she's like, oh, Nadia, she's so plain and boring and hardworking and not beautiful like me. She doesn't have boy problems. That's why she's such a good shoulder to lean on. So now we're hearing it from Nadia's perspective. And Nadia's fucking awesome. She's a real badass. She like, you know, like Maya's like the leader, like sort of like a captain of everything, but you know, now Maya has no job. Now that they've landed on Mars, everybody is fucking busy. Okay? We've all got jobs to do. We don't have time for leaders. So Nadia's she's awesome. She likes tractors and she works with tools. She's like the resident problem solver. She can literally do everything. Anything you can think of, she can do it. So everybody loves her, and she's like really coming into her own now that they've finally landed on Mars and they're actually doing what they came here to do. There was literally a full page describing her tool shed of all the things she collected from the surface of Mars to put in her tool shed. Because they have been airdropping like supplies all over the surface of Mars for when the settlers come. So there's literally just like crates all over the surface, full of supplies and everything they need. Literally like a nuclear reactor and tractors. What is it? Is it a Mercedes? I don't know. So she thinks her tractors are very sexy, and she's so happy about all the tools and supplies. There's crates full of macaroni noodles. Her tractor is a Mercedes, so she calls it a pig. Endearingly. Exactly, Moose. Alright, I think we're ready. Oh, and Nadia is literally... Oh, that's the other thing. She's literally building. She's a construction worker. Okay. She's literally she's a construction engineer, Wonder Woman, helping out the whole team. And right now she's working on their first habitat that they're going to be... Like, that they'll actually live in, so that they don't live in, like, a trailer park anymore. She's a civil engineer, but she doesn't have to be, just because she's a woman. Okay, she can just be an engineer. Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry. I cracked myself up. Oh, they made glass. That was cool. Scoochin'. So. At night, the talk went everywhere. Vehement, absorbed, unselfconscious. Dimitri and Samantha were sure that they could soon introduce genetically engineered microorganisms into the regolith that would survive. But they would have to get permission first from the UN. Nadia herself found the idea alarming. It made the chemical engineering in the factories look relatively straightforward. More like brick making than the dangerous acts of creation Samantha was proposing. Although the alchemists were performing some pretty creative things themselves. Almost every day they came back to the trailer park with samples of new materials. Sulfuric acid, sorrel cements for the vault mortar, ammonium nitrate explosives, a calcium cyanamide rover fuel, polysulfide rubber, silicon-based hyperacids, emulsifying agents, a selection of test tubes holding trace elements extracted from the salts, and most recently, clear glass. The glass, and most recently, clear glass. This last was a coup, as earlier attempts at glassmaking had produced only black glass. But stripping silicate feedstocks of their iron content had done the trick, and so one night they sat in the trailer, passing around small wavy sheets of glass. The glass itself was filled with bubbles and irregularities, like something out of the 17th century. When they got the first chamber buried and pressurized, Nadia walked around inside it with her helmet off, sniffing the air. It was pressurized to 450 millibars. Wait, did I read this last week too? Oh my god, I did. I started way too early. This part was sweet though. I really enjoyed reading this. So she walks around the habitat that they're building. She took off her shoes and socks, luxuriating in the feel of the warm, rough bricks underfoot. It was a wonderful room, and nice, too, to think that they had gone all the way to Mars and there built homes out of brick and bamboo. She recalled vaulted ruins that she had seen years ago on Crete, at a site called Aptera, underground Roman cisterns, barrel vaulted and made of brick, buried in a hillside. They had been almost the same size as these chambers. Their exact purpose was unknown. Storage for olive oil, some said, though it would have been an awful lot of oil. Those vaults were intact 2,000 years after their construction, and in earthquake country. As Nadia put her boots back on, she grinned to think of it. 2,000 years from now, their descendants might walk into this chamber, no doubt a museum by then, if it still existed. The first human dwelling built on Mars, and she had done it. Suddenly, she felt the eyes of that future on her, and shivered. They were like Cro-Magnons in a cave, living a life that was certain to be pored over by the archaeologists of subsequent generations. People like her who would wonder and never quite understand. More time passed, more work got done. It blurred for Nadia. She was always busy. The interior construction of the vaulted chambers was complicated, and the robots couldn't help much. Yeah, that's where I left off. Sorry, guys. The interior construction of the vaulted chambers was complicated, and the robots couldn't help much. Plumbing, heating, gas exchange, locks, kitchens. They had all the fixtures and tools and could work in pants and sweatshirts, but still it took an amazing amount of time. Work, 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 day after day. One evening, just before sunset, Nadia trudged across torn-up dirt to the trailer park, feeling hungry and beat and extremely relaxed. Not that you didn't have to be careful at the end of the day. She had torn a centimeter hole in the back of a glove the other evening, being careless, and the cold hadn't been so bad. About -50 centigrade. Nothing compared to some Siberian winter days. But the low air pressure had sucked out a blood bruise instantly, and then that had started to freeze up. Which made the bruise smaller, no doubt, but slower to heal as well. Anyway, you had to be careful. But there was something so fluid about tired muscles at the end of a day's construction work. The low rust sunlight slanting across the rocky plain. Wait, I have an idea. My light has temperature settings, right? Should we go for the evening Mars glow? Cozy. It really is. Anyway, you had to be careful. But there was something so fluid about tired muscles at the end of a day's construction work. The low rust sunlight slanting across the rocky plain. And all of a sudden she could feel that she was happy. Arcady called in from Phobos at just that moment, and she greeted him cheerily. I feel just like a Louis Armstrong solo from 1947. Why 1947? He asked. Why 1947? He asked. Well, that was the year he sounded the most happy. Most of his life, his tone has a sharp edge to it. Really beautiful, but in 1947 it was even more beautiful because it has this relaxed, fluid joy. You never hear it in him, before or after. Cheerily. With an I. In 1947, it had this relaxed, fluid joy. You never hear it in him before or after. A good year for him, I take it. A good year for him, I take it. Oh yes, an amazing year. After 20 years of horrible big bands, you see, he got back to a little group like the Hot Five. That was the group he headed when he was young. And there it was, the old songs, even some of the old faces. And all of it better than the first time, you know? The recording technology, the money, the audiences, the band, his own power. It must have felt like a fountain of youth, I tell you. You'll have to send up some recordings, Arcady said. He tried to sing. I can't give you anything but love, baby. Phobos was about over the horizon. He had just been calling to say hi. So this is your 1947, he said before he went. Nadia put her tools away, singing the song correctly. And she understood that what Arcady had said was true. Something had happened to her, similar to what had happened to Armstrong in 1947. Because despite the miserable conditions, her youthful years in Siberia had been the happiest of her life. They really had. And then she had endured 20 years of big band cosmonautics, bureaucracy, simulations, and indoor life, all to get here. And now suddenly she was out in the open again, building things with her hands, operating heavy machinery, solving problems 100 times a day, just like Siberia, only better. It was just like Satchmo's return. Thus, when Hiroko came up and said, Nadia, this crescent wrench is absolutely frozen in this position. Nadia sang to her, That's the only thing I'm thinking of, baby, and took the crescent wrench and slammed it against a table like a hammer and twiddled the dial to show Hiroko it was unstuck, and laughed at her expression. The engineer's solution, she explained, and went humming into the lock, thinking how funny Hiroko was. A woman who held their whole ecosystem in her head, but couldn't hammer a nail straight. And that night she talked over the day's work with Sax, and spoke to Spencer about glass. And in the middle of that conversation, crashed on her bunk and snuggled her head into her pillow, feeling totally luxurious. The glorious final chorus of Ain't Misbehavin' chased her off to sleep. I'm not sad. I was thinking. But things change as time passes. Nothing lasts, not even stone, not even happiness. Do you realize it's... Wait, is this Ellis? Did you realize it's LS 170 already? Phyllis said one night. Is it L's or LS? I don't know. It looks like LS. But also kind of, I don't know. I'm going to go with LS. I'm gonna need more context. Excuse me. I had to burp at the same time that I was coughing. Whew. Do you realize it's LS 170 already? Phyllis said one night. Didn't we land at LS 7? So they had been on Mars for half a Martian year. Phyllis was using the calendar devised by planetary scientists. Among the colonists, it was becoming more common than the Terran system. Mars's year was 668.6 local days long. And to tell where they were in this long year, it took the LS calendar. This system declared the line between the Sun and Mars at its northern spring equinox. This system declared the line between the Sun and Mars at its northern spring equinox to be 0. And then to be 0 degrees. And then the year was divided into 360 degrees. So that LS equals 0 degrees to 90 degrees. So LS 0 to 90 degrees was the northern spring. 90 to 180, the northern summer. 180 to 270, the fall. And 270 to 360, or 0 again, the winter. This simple situation was complicated by the eccentricity of Mars' orbit, which is extreme by Terran standards. For at perihelion, Mars is about 43 million kilometers closer to the Sun than it is at aphelion, and thus receiving about 45% more sunlight. This fluctuation makes the southern and northern seasons quite unequal. Perihelion arrives every year at LS 250, late in the southern spring. So southern springs and summers are much hotter than northern springs and summers, with peak temperatures as much as 30 degrees higher. Southern autumns and winters are colder, however, occurring as they do near the aphelion. So much colder that the southern polar cap is mostly carbon dioxide, while the northern one is mostly water ice. So, the south was the hemisphere of extremes, the north that of moderation. And the orbital eccentricity caused one other feature of note. Planets move faster the closer they are to the sun. So the seasons near perihelion are shorter than those near aphelion. The northern autumn is 143 days long, for instance. The northern autumn is 143 days long, for instance, while northern spring is 194. Spring, 51 days longer than autumn. Yes, perfect for daylight savings talks. So spring was 51 days longer than autumn. Some claimed this alone made it worth settling in the north. In any case, in the north they were, and spring had arrived. The days got longer by little bit every day, and the work went on. The area around the base got more cluttered, more crisscrossed with tracks. They had laid a cement road to Chernobyl, and the base itself... Oh wait, I guess I should have showed the diagram. I was gonna show it when I hit it in the page, because I'm still reading up here, but I guess this is a better time. This book is really old, so I hope I don't rip it. The Martian calendar, year 1, 2027, wait, 2027 8 AD. I don't know if that's right. I assume this is Mars. 669 total Martian days in one Martian year. 24 months equals 21 months at 28 days. 3 months every 8th at 27 days. This is 21 months. So yeah, I don't know. You can look at that later if you want to. Oh, the sun. Yeah, I wasn't looking too closely. Oh, that is the sun. That's definitely the sun. I couldn't see the lines around it. Where's Mars? You gotta say you are here with a big arrow. So there's 0. The line between the sun and Mars at its northern spring equinox. Okay, yeah, so that's it. So let me orient you all. That's LS0. And what way does it go? Northern spring. Summer. Yeah, okay. So then it goes northern spring up to LS 70 and 90. Wait. Solstice apsides. Oh. Anyways, here's the line of equinox. And it goes around like this. And, you know, if you in your northern summer, southern winter, and you can see how it's uneven. Like some sides are, so yeah, you see the irregular ellipse of the orbit. Seasons. The book is upside down. How eccentric. Onward. In any case, in the north they were, and spring had arrived. Thank you, Ion, for 26 months. Oh, for 24 months. Oh, it's a 669-day year, so it's 24 months. 21 of the months have 28 days. And 3 months, every 8th month, is 27 days. Wow, I'm feeling really grateful to live on Earth right now. You don't even want to imagine daylight savings on Mars. Also, fuck you for making me read this whole diagram. I was totally gonna skip it. No, I'm kidding. I would have done that. But thank you for making me do it at the right time. In any case, in the north they were. The spring had arrived. The days got longer by a little bit every day, and the work went on. The area around the base got more cluttered, more crisscrossed with tracks. They had laid a cement road to Chernobyl, and the base itself... I'm reading too fast, I'm sorry. And the base itself was now so big that from the trailer park, it extended over the horizon in all directions. Oh, Chernobyl. Okay. Chernobyl is the nuclear power plant that they built. Remember in the summary I mentioned that a nuclear reactor was in the shipments? So they assembled it. Everything on Mars has been pre-shipped, except for the people. Everything else has been pre-shipped by Amazon to be set up like IKEA furniture. And a nuclear power plant was in that. Okay, so the area around the base got more cluttered, more crisscrossed with tracks. They had laid a cement road to Chernobyl, and the base itself was now so big that from the trailer park, it extended over the horizon in all directions. The Alchemist's Quarter and the Chernobyl Road to the east, the permanent habitat to the north, the storage area and the farm to the west, and the Biomed Center to the south. Oh, actually, it was Arcades. It was King of Phobos' nickname. They started calling it Chernobyl. Just, not even because it's janky, just to, like, be a shit poster, you know? Like Arcady is. Like, you know, they're building up, I think there's even been debates about, oh yeah, that was it. I can't remember the Japanese phrase. Tekata, I don't know. It means there is no other way. There have even been debates about how wind energy would be better on Mars, that they don't need nuclear. But they're like, we already have a nuclear reactor. We're gonna use it, you know? There's no other way. Which basically means use what you've got. Yeah, all the birds. Or solar, or whatever it was. I don't know. There's been debates, but anyways, so they built Chernobyl, and that's kind of like a cute little nickname for it. I turned the page. Eventually, everyone moved into the finished chambers of the permanent habitat. The nightly conferences were shorter and more routinized than they had been in the trailer park. And days went by when Nadia got no calls for help. There were some people she saw only once in a while. The Biomed crew in its labs, Phyllis's prospecting unit, even Anne. One night, Anne flopped on her bed next to Nadia's and invited her to go along on an exploration to the Hebes Chasma, some 130 kilometers to the southwest. Obviously, Anna wanted to show her something outside the base area, but Nadia declined. I've got too much work to do, you know. And seeing Anne's disappointment, maybe next trip. And then it was back to work on the interiors of the chambers and the exteriors of a new wing. Arcady had suggested making the line of chambers the first of 4, arranged in a square, and Nadia was going to do it. As Arcady pointed out, it would then be possible to roof the area enclosed by the square. That's where those magnesium beams will come in handy, Nadia said. If only we could make stronger glass panes. They had finished 2 sides of the square, 12 chambers entirely done, when Anne and her team returned from Hebe's. Hebes. It might be Hebes. I don't know. Should I say Hebes or Hebe's? I think Hebes. Now that I'm saying Hebes, I think I'm going to go with that. Okay, Hebes. Chasma. When Anne and her team returned from Hebes, there were 12 chambers entirely done and 2 sides of the square. Everyone spent the evening looking at their videotapes. They showed the expedition's rovers rolling over rocky plains. Then ahead, there appeared a break extending all the way across the screen, as if they were approaching the edge of the world. I don't know that. Yeah, which one should I say? Oh my god. Hebe's? Say Hebe's? Okay, sorry. Oh my god. This is why streamers don't read books. Oh, is it? Oof. Then ahead, there appeared a break extending all the way across the screen, as if they were approaching the edge of the world. Strange little meter-high cliffs finally stopped the rovers, and the pictures bounced as one explorer got out and walked with helmet camera turned on. Then, abruptly, the shot was from the rim. A 180 pan shot of a canyon that was so much bigger than the sinkholes of Ganges Katina that it was hard to grasp. The walls of the far side of the chasm were just visible on the distant horizon. In fact, they could see walls all the way around, for Hebe's was an almost enclosed chasm, a sunken ellipse, almost 200 kilometers long and 100 across. Anne's party had come to the North Rim in late afternoon, and the eastern curve of the wall was clearly visible, flooded by sunset light. Out to the west, the wall was just a low, dark mark. The floor of the chasm was generally flat with a central dip. If you could float a dome over the chasm, Anne said, you'd have a nice big enclosure. You're talking miracle domes, Anne, Sachs said. That's about 10,000 square kilometers. Well, it would make a good big enclosure, and then you could leave the rest of the planet alone. The weight of the dome would collapse the canyon walls. That's why I said you'd have to float it. Sachs just shook his head. It's no more exotic than this space elevator you're talking about. Space elevator. I want to live in a house located right where you took that video, Nadia interrupted. What a view. Just wait till you get up on one of the Tharsis volcanoes, Anne said, irritated. Then you'll get a view. There were little spats like that all the time now. It reminded Nadia unpleasantly of the last months on the Ares. Another example. Arkady and his crew sent down videos of Phobos with his commentary. The Stickney impact almost broke this rock in pieces, and it's chondritic, almost 20% water. So a lot of the water outgassed on impact and filled the fracture system and froze in a whole system of ice veins. Fascinating stuff. But all it did was cause an argument between Anne and Phyllis, their two top geologists, as to whether this was the real explanation for the ice. Phyllis even suggested shipping water down from Phobos, which was silly, even if their supplies were low and their demand increasing. Chernobyl took a lot of water, and the farmers were ready to start a little swamp. In their biosphere. And Nadia wanted to install a swimming complex in one of the vaulted chambers, including a lap pool, 3 whirlpool baths, and a sauna. Each night, people asked Nadia how it was coming along, because everyone was sick of washing with sponges and still being dusty, and of never really getting warm. They wanted a bath in their old aquatic dolphin brains, down below the cerebrums, down where desires were primal and fierce. They wanted back into water. Yeah, roar, get him. I'm sorry, Moose. It's an instinctual response, but you have to think about the primacy of it, you know? Indeed. Okay, Shikara ga nai. There is no other way, I think. That's what it means. Okay, they wanted a bath. Splish, splash, I was taking a bath. Okay. They wanted back into water. So they needed more water. But the seismic scans were finding no evidence of ice aquifers underground. And Anne thought there weren't any in the region. They had to continue to rely on the air miners, or scrape up regolith and load it into the soil water distilleries. But Nadia didn't like to overwork the distilleries, because they had been manufactured by a French-Hungarian-Chinese consortium and were sure to wear out if used for bulk work. But that was life on Mars. It was a dry place. Shikara ga nai. There are always choices, Phyllis said to that. This was why she had suggested filling landing vehicles with Phobos ice and bringing it on down. But Anne thought that that was a ridiculous waste of energy. And they were off again. I have to pee. I'll be right back.